I just always thought those guys were crooks.
Doug, how did you find carnivore?
I think Carnivore kind of found me. Um, I'm 68. I've always just been a little bit pudgy. I guess not fat, but just probably carrying an extra 20, 30 pounds more than I would like. And I've tried, you know, I'm not into the diet fad arena. I certainly see a lot of that stuff on TV, on the social media, computer ads, and all that stuff. I've never been one for any of that stuff. So, and a couple times over my life, I've just like lost some weight just by not eating, exercising. And recently, we've been visiting with some people, and their son is back living at home. And he told me about the carnivore diet, and some friends of theirs had talked about it. And so I was naturally curious, asked a lot of questions, because I've always loved eating carbs, pizza, burgers, fries, just all that stuff, of course, cookies, ice cream. Um, and my kind of ongoing battle with that is I don't bring the crap into the house. If it's in the house, like if my wife buys a bag of potato chips, I'll eat the whole bag. If she buys cookies, I'll eat the whole bag of cookies. So, kind of my governor is don't bring it into the house. I generally won't go buy it. And so that's how I've kind of self-regulated. Plus, I'm a locksmith by trade. And so I'm out in the field working pretty much full time. And so that's kind of where I get my exercise. I've never really been one to exercise. For a few years, I liked running. I'd have like just some, I don't know, slight depression or whatever. At one point in time, I found running seemed to help with that. Um, so anyway, these people talked about the carnivore diet. So I would ask them questions over dinner and saw that they were just eating meat. And so I thought that was interesting. And then I did a little research on YouTube, and they would send me some videos. And I think I ran into Dr. Ken Berry, and then another associate of his, or he interviewed this American doctor that's from Australia that's currently a resident in Australia. Don't remember his name.
Dr. Chafee.
Yes. And both of those guys just seemed really down to earth and not flamboyant, just they've both been through their personal journeys. Dr. Ken Berry, his story, he became a doctor, always wanted to be a doctor, started being when he finished that long road, within a couple months, he told his wife, like, I don't want to be a doctor. I'm not helping people. And then Dr. Chafee's story about him being in sports and all of that stuff. So it just more and more resonated with me, and I just started tiptoeing into it. I don't know, maybe it wasn't a tiptoe, maybe it was just a deep dive into the end of the pool. I just didn't do a whole bunch more research than that. I just started eating meat, eggs, bacon, all this stuff. And I pretty much just knocked off the carbs. And I also saw some stuff about the seed oils, and I was like a little aghast about that, how they're made. And, I think it's big business. I mean, obviously businesses are trying to survive like everything else. But I read that. I kind of knew that, that stuff was a little sketchy, but, reading a little bit more about that, watching a couple YouTube videos about the process. So I just figured it wouldn't hurt to get that stuff out of my life. So when I did the deep dive, it really wasn't that hard for me personally to just ditch the carbs, the breads. I love bread, I just haven't had that much of a craving for the sugar, the carbs, and occasionally, like last night, since we're on the road, my wife and I went out to eat. So we went to a barbecue place, and I know that there's probably a lot of sugar in the barbecue sauce. And I'm not trying to be a fanatic about this. It's like, well, I'm not going to burden my wife with my eating choices. So, if barbecue's on the menu, then I'll just eat barbecue. But the interesting thing is I woke up about 2:00 in the morning to go to the bathroom, and all of a sudden I had that kind of a hunger that I haven't had in a while, like that ravaging kind of like, I need to go get something to eat. And I don't understand the physiology of the body like a lot of these guys do. I'm more just kind of an empirical, how do I feel? What's going on? But I noticed at 2:00 in the morning, I was kind of like, oh, I'm kind of hungry kind of thing. So I don't know, maybe it was the sugar. I don't know. I don't tend to introvert or think about it for a super long time. I went to the bathroom, went back to bed, and that was it. So, but yeah, so that's,
So how long has it been that you've actually been eating carnivore?
I'm going to say 6, 8 weeks, something like that. I think less than 2 months. And like I said, I was pretty much all in, but like I said, not a fanatic. If I go out to breakfast, I just tell people I don't want the potatoes, I don't want the toast. And I know that they're cooking stuff with seed oil. I'm sure sometimes I'll kind of ask if, hey, I try not to be a pain in the ass about it, I go, I've made such a reduction that a little bit here and there, I think is just such a vast improvement. It's not worth being a fanatic about it. So most of the time we're just cooking at home, and now I've broken my lunchbox back out of my garage, and, I just carry food with me. And when I get hungry, I eat, and I eat till I'm not hungry. And then I just don't think about eating again until I get hungry again. And as far as snacks and stuff, those, I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right, those chicharrones, they're pork fried.
Okay, I've never heard of them, but it might be a US product. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's just pork skin that's deep fried. And so if I get hungry or, in that snacky kind of like mode, those things have really just saved my bacon, so to speak, and, just get me over that hump. And yeah, so that's it. I've been
Nice.
trying different varieties. And if anything, this journey has made me look a little bit more at the labels. Some, they've got different flavored ones, and if you dig into it, they got sugar in them or something. So I just try to, again, I'm not obsessive about it. I just try to, if I've got a choice of doing it or not doing it, then I don't do it.
And so in this 6 to 8 weeks, what have you noticed? Weight loss or any kind of improvements with sleep and things like that?
Now, I've always slept like a bear, so that's not too much different. Maybe my snoring might be a little bit less. I'd have to ask my wife. The one thing I just kind of noticed the other day is my watch is looser on my wrist, which, my arms have always been pretty lean anyway, so that's something I noticed. My belly fat, if I squeeze it, seems like it's a little, like it's starting to reduce a little bit. That I've always been fairly healthy. I'm not on any kind of, pharmaceuticals, no vaccines, none of that kind of stuff. I'm going to be 68 here in a couple of days. So I don't know if I've just been blessed with, a pretty good body. So I haven't seen any really dramatic changes. Actually, I think the scale's gone up a little bit. I kind of weighed myself when I first started. Maybe I was at like 192, and I think I've gone up to like 195, 196. So that was like a little discouraging. I thought, maybe I was going to shed a bunch of weight, but it seems like my pants might be a little easier to button. So again, things may be shifting around a little bit, and maybe I'm just not aware of it, at this point in time. One thing, since I do work with my hands a lot, my hands were kind of achy when I would get out of bed in the morning. Just like joint pain, or not severe, but it seems like that has diminished. Kind of like a headache that maybe you've had for your whole life, and then it kind of goes away. You don't think about it anymore. I think that's about it. But I've never really been a pharmaceutical guy. I just always thought those guys were crooks. And I'm not anti-medicine. Like if I fall off the roof of a house, I think doctors are good for putting people back together. But I think, for the nutrition and that stuff, I went in for a heart, treadmill thing for my heart, to get that tested. So that was fine. Did the treadmill thing, did okay on that. And the doctor comes in, the very first word out of his mouth is, "You need to be on a statin." And I'm like, what the hell's a statin? I'd heard the word, but I was like, I don't know about that, and I was just like, what the hell? We're not going to try anything else before we just jump on the pharmaceutical bandwagon here. So I try to stay away from doctors. I'd see my chiropractor and get massages and stuff like that. And let's try what nature's got to dish out first.
Yeah, I think that's a good policy to have. So do you feel at this stage that this is the kind of way of eating that you'd like to stick with? And if so, why?
Well, I like it. I don't see a real problem sticking with it. I think the main thing for me and my wife is the cooking. We haven't figured that out. And just cooking meat products in your house, you can end up with a pretty greasy kitchen. And we're not like clean, crazy people, but we do like a clean house. And so we've been trying to barbecue. I don't know. That's one area that if I'm going to really stick with this, I got to figure out a way to cook the meat so I don't end up just with like a kitchen full of grease all over the walls and stuff like that. And traveling, it's not too difficult to me, and again, I'm not trying to be hardcore, make people wrong for eating sugar or whatever, if it's there, it's there. So I think it's a livable, doable lifestyle. I mean, before we took off on this trip to come up and see the grandkids, we had a bunch of meat. I just threw it, in the cooler on the plane, brought it to the hotel room, threw it in the refrigerator, and it was enough for 3 or 4 days. I think I still have a burnt hot dog left over. So, and in the hotel that we're staying at, it's interesting, I go down to the little buffet breakfast, and I look all around and there's nothing. It's not that I can't eat it, it's that I'm not going to eat it. I think that's the difference. They got waffles, they got muffins, they've got toast and cereal and a ton of stuff, but the only thing that's there that I can eat or that I will eat are hard-boiled eggs. And even their eggs and whatever, it looks like a processed. I brought one up to my wife and she said, "Whoa, yuck," you know. So I think I could keep this up. I think I will keep it up unless all of a sudden I find something about it I don't like. I have liked some veggies. I've cut those out. I mean, not so much veggies, but salad. I liked eating salad. So I haven't put any of that in. I don't know if I subscribe to the theory of plants are trying to kill us, but I think that's a pretty fun saying, and it's something to dwell about and, just look at. The one thing I find interesting is I always like to look at people, and I go to the grocery store because we're up here in the state of Washington. We went into a Winco. I've never been into a Winco before, and the place is huge. And I just was looking around the store with like a different viewpoint or perspective, and I go, wow, 95% or this stuff in this store I can't eat or won't eat. Just aisles and aisles of boxed stuff and colored juices and drinks and process this and process that. And I go, wow. I think somebody said that, if it's in a box, it's a plant, right? And then I look at the people, and there's a huge amount of super heavy people. I mean, I guess you'd call them obese, and it's hard for me to gauge the weight, but I know how I am at like 220 or whatever I got up to. These people must be double that, 400 pounds. And they're not walking really well. They're just kind of waddling or shuffling. And then I look at their carts, not being judgy, but just kind of surreptitiously looking at what they're eating. And the carts are completely filled full of processed food stuff, Gatorade, blue drink, and potato chips. And I'm like, oh boy. And then if you watch TV, it's nonstop pizza, Burger King, or, McDonald's. I'm not picking on any particular company, but it's like, wow. It's really an entrenched attack. If humans were designed to pretty much eat meat, this is a pretty serious attack on our health, so, and there's a lot of people on a lot of drugs and, diabetes and all that kind of stuff. And I just want no part of that.
Yeah. It's quite scary when you actually, when you've started eating like this and then you kind of look around, as your eyes are more open to what's actually happening, and it's very scary.
It definitely is. And again, I'm not picking on anybody, any particular company, but like out here in California, there's Dairy Queens, it's a fast food, or In-N-Out, and they show the stuff, it's just like this milkshake thing with these cookie bits in it and all of that stuff. And to me, it almost becomes repulsive to look at some of that stuff. And again, I'm a real libertarian kind of guy. Like, if you want to do drugs, or you want to eat whatever you want to eat. I don't care. And I'm not trying to judge people. But like you said, it's just now taking a little bit more in-depth look, or just a little slight viewpoint shift in how I've been eating. I just really, that stuff is really kind of getting like disgusting. Like, no, I'm not going to eat that crap.
Yeah, I think once you, I mean, I'm sure when people go whole food plant-based as well, they probably get into a similar mindset. Once you're only eating, one ingredient foods, you start to look around and go, what's going on here?
Yeah, and it's, maybe we need to roll things back a little bit to a little more simpler time. You kind of see it. Maybe the food, uh, maybe this carnivore food health thing is kind of just one point of like our whole human lifestyle, because we got an economy that's just really kind of messed up. The money supplies, the inflation, and that's gotten, maybe that it's just kind of like on a parallel track, of getting, if we just rolled it back, the world ran for thousands of years with gold and silver, right? And, maybe the food thing was the same way. It just, we're better off with a simpler diet. It's then.
Wonder it would spell the collapse of industry, though, right? It's like, what would happen to so many companies if things were wound back?
Well, that's an interesting. You could probably have discuss that forever, because yeah, when one company fails, the plant closes, the people are out of work, the local businesses are affected. I mean, it has a cascading effect. I don't have an answer to that, but what do you do when your business is killing people, or not, directly take a gun and shoot them and kill them, but has over a long period, has dilatory effects on people. That's where I think where the slippery slope starts. Even saying bad words. Like when you can't say the words, then all of a sudden, like this whole thing kind of builds up. And it just gets. Now we're into this whole woke, pronoun kind of stuff, and it's just like, wow, can't we just talk to people like you and I are just having a conversation? Like, just, so I don't know. It's even in my business. I'm a locksmith by trade. I hate going and fixing up people's houses after they get broken into. I'd really, that kind of weighs on my mind. Am I just preying on people's misfortune, or am I helping them in a time of need? And you can see both sides of that coin. And so ideally at some point, I'd like to just fix people's broken locks and their broken doors and, their poor workmanship, but just keep making things more and more secure to keep the bad guys out. Just doesn't sit well with me.
But yeah, it's an interesting topic to kind of, because it's almost, it feels like, all things being equal, there's no escape from, we're heading in a bad direction, and there's kind of no escape from it.
Well, yeah, you can go pretty solid or down tone, just thinking that the economy is going to collapse, and, Klaus Schwab is going to run the world. But there are people that are saying, hey, enough's enough. Mike Adams, the health ranger out of Texas, has just taken up a lawsuit to, he's suing all the big tech people, including Department of Homeland Security. So he just announced that the other day, and I'm going, whoa, that's a David and Goliath story right there, you know? And I have no idea how that's going to turn out. He feels pretty positive that he's got smoking gun evidence that they came after him directly and used that the U.S. government used big tech to specifically single him out, Alex Jones, and some other people. So I don't think that that's something you take on too lightly. And so that's pushing the boulder up the hill. So good luck to him.
Doug, is there a way that people can reach out to you? Do you have any social media or anything like that?
I don't even have a Facebook account. I mean, I do have my locksmith business in California. I'm just up here in the state of Washington on grandfather. My wife and I are up here visiting our grandkids. So I could give you an email address. I've got a Proton account.
Yeah, sure. And I can share that below in the show notes. Doug, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad my friend Trevor hooked me up. Now I'm going to have to go on your site and look at the rest of your videos.